Greetings and salutations in our distance. It is Wolfphototech, and here we are with another delightful video. This time I'm going to cover Starfinder First Edition. Paizo, about 2 to 3 weeks ago, maybe a little bit more, of the recording of this video, announced that they are starting to develop Starfinder Second Edition. Now, Starfinder Second Edition is going to be based on the Pathfinder 2nd Edition remaster rules. So, let's see how what they're going to do exactly with that. But for quick fun reference, this is Starfinder 1st Edition, and it is something else entirely different, even from Starfinder, Pathfinder 1st or even 2nd Edition. It's not so incredibly radically different. It's still based on the D&D 3.5 D20 system. However, I got that bookmark there, yeah. There is a bunch of really fun things. Please note that the color theme for this book is blue. It is still a fairly chunky book that fits in at, say, over 100. Not 100. No, it's more than 100. It sits right over 520 plus pages. And it currently MSRPs, according to the book, for $60. I do say, if you want to play Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I would probably advise, to move that out of the way, that you consider the starter set. However, the starter set has an abbreviated version of the rules with some simplified mechanics in it, altered simplified mechanics. So it's not the 100 where the Pathfinder First Edition and Second Edition rule set, start beginner boxes, are pretty much just the basic rules for the first few levels. The Starfinder box is a modified version of the Starfinder rules because Starfinder is, interestingly enough, a little more robust than even Pathfinder First Edition in some areas, but also simplified in other ways and modified to be a bit more balanced, but not nearly as balanced as Pathfinder Second Edition. This huge pile of D&D 5th Edition third-party books right here with two Pathfinder third-party books in the pile. So I have a lot of books to go through. But anyways, you go right off the bat. You open up the cover. You have the Pact Worlds map. This is basic just map of all the major places in the Pact Worlds. Where the Sun, Alban, Castroval, Absalom Station, Ekaton, Versailles, Idra, Eox, Traxus, Levera, Octun, Berethia, and Apostate are located. As I said, it has a blue theme throughout the entire book. Blue is my favorite color, by the way, or one of my favorite colors. You know what? I took a lot of art classes, and once you get to a certain point, sometimes with art and art theory and stuff like that, you end up kind of learning or developing a liking to not just a single color, but many different colors. So blues are my primary favorite color, but I like purple, I like red a lot, I like black, and many others. The table of contents is actually fairly well laid out. It's spaced out fairly nice, so it's easy to read. It's not super granular. It is like a moderate quality table of contents. So it does get you to the places you need to be in the book to find what you want. However, it doesn't get you all the small stuff. You know, all the little tiny little detail things like all the chart locations and example stat blocks and stuff like that. It just gives you all the major chapters and then the little subsections in those. We have this is, by the way, the core rulebook, so it contains also a game master section as well as setting information and even Pathfinder legacy information. So if you want to play Pathfinder first edition characters or races into this system, pull that stuff from the oldest version of Pathfinder into this one, you can do that. You got Chapter 1, Overview, which starts at page 4. You have Chapter 2, Character Creation, which is 12 to 28, which just covers all the basic components of character creation. And then you have Chapter 3, Races, which is also known as Species, about about the time of the OGL. Paizo announced that they're going to switch the terminology from races to species, which is depending on the matter of the fact that it's basically just changing terms to the basic rule of psychology is that when you change a term because it has a negative connotation to it, it is not the term, the negativity that's attached to that term can be transferred to the new term depending on the usage of it. Okay, so if you're just simply swapping one for the other, you end up contaminating the new term with the negatives of the old term. If creatures can breed across us from each other, you get hybrids. Races is an accurate word to apply to that. If they cannot breed with each other, then it's species. Technically, species are not supposed to be able to breed between each other, but then you have situations where you have subspecies, where they're kind of like that halfway step between a species and a race or a breed. And then when you're in that gray zone, you end up with a lot of birth defects. You know, the ligers and tyons and stuff like that. So it's important to note that kind of stuff. Chapter 4, from page 56 to 126, is classes. Chapter 5, starting at 130, is skills. There's no subdividing in that chapter right at all. It's just the main chapter head. Then chapter 6 is feats, which is at 150. Then you have chapter 7, which is equipment, which is 164 to 230. Chapter 8 is tactical rules, basically your combat stuff, which is 236 all the way to 278. Chapter 9 is starships, which is 288 to page 316. Chapter 10 is magic and spells, which is 328 to 340. Chapter 11 is game mastery, which is 386 to 420. Chapter 12 is settings, the setting, which is page 422 to page 494. And then chapter 13 is Pathfinder Legacy, which is 498 to 506. And then you have the glossary, inspirational media, index, character sheet, starship sheet, and so forth. The important small detail that's added in here is, unlike previous other systems, you have spaceships in here. You have various options: space travel, building a starship, simple starships, starship combat in here. Most people complain that the starship combat is exceedingly complicated. Yeah, I probably could introduce you to Traveler over here, or if you want complicated. But anyways, that is the other important point. But also the magic chapter is really short comparatively compared to, say, like Pathfinder First Edition, 2nd Edition Remaster, Dungeons and Dragons, and so forth. That's because the magic system has been abbreviated. Instead of the 0 to 9 level 9 spells, it got cut in half roughly to like something like 5 or 6, if I remember correctly. I believe it's 6. My brain is farting on it 5 seconds right now. As per standard in this book, there are quite a few double page spreads for the beginnings of each chapter. All of them, it's generally favored towards the blue theme in the book. This is the getting started section. It has a nice navigation bar on the side here. Nothing super special. It doesn't add too much in the way of depth when it comes to the bar. Even when you go to other sections, it doesn't add extra options there. It's just there to remind you what section you're in. It goes over the very basics of what is a TTRPG, how to use this book, understanding basic concepts like modifier, attack rolls, checks, abbreviations, etc., etc. There is a few interesting additions into Starfinder, such as HP is split into two different categories, HP and stamina points. HP is your core health. That is like your primary health right there. That's the really deep down stuff. And your stamina points is basically the softer, more easily recovered stuff. Stamina points represent how much damage you have taken before you actually hurt, while HP points represent how badly hurt you can be before you fall unconscious or die. Stamina points are lost before HP points and so much easier to regain. For a more detailed explanation, see page 22. And that is not unusual in this book. They do a really nice job of tacking in that little spot, those little notations like see page 22, see page 33, so forth. They also do a nice job of touching in here with some nice icons for various different things. This is an example of play or a replay, as the term is in Japan. It's just a really short section to get you the idea of how the game feels. Another beautiful double-page spread for Starfinder for the character creation section. Yet again, as I said, it's very beautiful. You have all this beautiful, various shades of blue, dark blue, navy blue, a variant off of sky blue. You have the standard race selection here. However, you have new options such as Android, Kastasas, Lustinta, Sirens, Vesk, and Yosoki, as well as human. Themes are basically backgrounds, just a different term for it in Starfinder. I don't know why they chose to go with theme over the word background or occupation, but that's the direction they went. Then you have classes, and the classes are not exactly 100% one-to-one to the classic D&D or Pathfinder class as options. You have Envoy, Mechanic, Mystic, Operative, Solarian, Soldier, and Technomancer. Envoy is kind of like your Bard. The Mechanic is an Artificer like class. The Mystic is a Cleric type class. Operative is more like a Rogue. Solarian is more like a Paladin with a splash of Sorcerer in it. Soldier is basically like your fighter. And a Technomancer is kind of like a wizard. But they are not 100% one-to-one and then all features or characteristics. You got some weird off-quirks in them compared to the other ones. You have a nice little piece of artwork here. Yet again, a lot of blue. Melee weapon. There is a heavy propensity in sci-fi or science fantasy games like Starfinder or Traveler to have games of, or even Star Trek Adventure, to morph into a projectile battle situation where you have a bunch of characters just basically standing around or ducking behind cover or diving pro, just shooting at each other from a distance. So there's that. However, Starfinder does put a bit of effort into giving you more melee options. This chapter, by the way, covers the ability scores and explains the range of ability scores and modifier. The modifications off of themes on your scores. Examples here, Constitution, Dexterity, and so forth, explaining the basic principles of each ones. You have a section on health and resolve. Resolve points are very useful for those really sticky situations when you really need to get over something or overcome dying. You have the alignment system right here. This is most likely going to be cut out of Starfinder 2nd Edition, as this is OGL content. However, I could make an argument that the concept of alignment is so ubiquitous in the TTRPG and video gaming scene that Wizards of the Coast functionally cannot copyright it or sue someone for it, because it's so everywhere and it's on things that's not even listed for OGL or doesn't even have the OGL written in it, on it or tied to it, that it's practically almost impossible for Wizards of the Coast to argue that you can't use it. And even then, all you would have to do is change or modify some components of it, and then they are really up a hard argument street to get on you. And by the way, I have several relatives who work with lawyers, work for lawyers, and have history with lawyers. So I got literally like a library of legal papers in my archive. This section right here explains leveling up, but it also throws in a little bit of something on retraining your level up. It gives you a experience point level to experience point ability increases and special details added right in. And then you have the section on character themes. Character theme essentially adds a boost to one of your stats, a special feature, theme knowledge. When you level up to a certain point, you gain a new feature on top of your old one, and so forth. So like Ace Pilot, you start out at level 1 with theme knowledge, and just a little bit of information about your theme, your basic Ace Pilot. And then you level 6, you got Lone Wolf. And level 12 is Need for Speed, and 18 is Master Pilot. Now, the weird thing is that I personally don't feel that Lone Wolf is a good choice of name for this. And really, you got Need for Speed, which like race car driver. So it should have been something like Top Gun or Ace Pilot or something like that. Make it into movie pilot homage terms. Same thing with Bounty Hunter, Icon, Mercenary, Outlaw, Priest, Scholar, Spacefarer, Xenoseeker, and that's it. In other books for Starfinder, first edition, there are oftentimes more themes in those other books. So you can keep adding on to your selection of themes, and you will end up with a very nice flexible range of options. And then you have races here. And yet again, this is a nice double page spread of some action here. You got, as the races I've listed before, androids, humans, Cathasas, Lushintas, Shirans, Vesk, and Yosoki. You got a section talking about languages, prevalent languages, very common ones, other languages, vital statistics and information, reading the race entries, explaining that, and so forth. And then you go into the races, and you have androids right up here in the front. You have a basic set of modifiers up here, as well as base HP. By the way, for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, this is the origin point of a base HP for each race or ancestry is in Starfinder. So you right off the bat. I actually really like that, and I'm actually incorporating that into a system I'm actually writing up. I find it's a really good way of giving your level 1 or level 0 character a starting point that holds them up a little bit, but it does not stack continuously as they level up, ballooning the HP even worse into the future. these are important detailed bullet points of understanding the basic concept of the race itself. So if you're in a hurry, this right here will get you a good basis of understanding them. And then these are all little features they also have as well. But they also have deeper information, you know, physical description, home world, society and alignment, relations, adventurers, name. My personal opinion on alignment when it comes to races, species, ancestries, and so forth is that generally that alignment shouldn't be applied to any races or sentient beings by default. However, it should be applied to beings that are tied to outer planes or creatures that are born of certain types of energy. Sentience is something intrinsically tied into the concept of free will, and alignment or bias towards alignment might actually be better tied into culture and history for the races, and that could actually be a better direction to come out of it than to go down the they happen to be they tend towards lawful evil or neutral good or something like that, where it should actually be along the lines of this culture values these sets of principles. Each race or species has a pair of pages, and they're always facing each other in pairs. So this is a excellent example of someone who has spent their time being very careful about arranging everything. So when you go to the race, you don't have to turn more than one page to get all the information for that race or species. You got everything right here. Bam. That's awesome. Because that means you could just look at it, read it through, think about it, look at your character sheet. You don't have to flip pages to double check anything. This is really handy dandy for someone who has ADHD. You don't want to be flipping pages to get all your information, because the moment you flip a page to look at something, you might forget a detail on the previous page and have to go back to look at it. And then you have to go back to the previous page, the other page, and look at it, and so forth. Sharons are bug-like people. Interestingly enough, people have complained that Starfinder has a overprevalence of humanoid type ape races. First and foremost, I'm going to have to throw a massive rock into those dipshits. In the core rulebook, yes, there is. The bug people are humanoid in form. All the races or species are humanoid-like. That is the core rulebook. That is a very easy way for people to comprehend how to play their characters, is not have something that is radically different than humanoid body structure. The Cathasas have 4 arms. There you go. That is the one other modification to body form in the core rulebook. However, if you go to the Alien Archives books or various other books that have been released for Starfinder later on, you will oftentimes find that there are races and species that have radically different body structures. Like, they are literally a ball. They're literally a ball, or they're gas, or they have many legs, and they're like an octopus. So there's other things than just the humanoid body form pattern. by the way, playing a Yosoki you like and other races probably tells you this is the stuff you might like. This is stuff that's tied. This is really simple bullet point concepts for the race right here. So between this and this, if you don't want to read all this, this pretty much gets you the go, you know. Then you have the section on the classes. Yet again, with every class, every chapter, you have a 2-page spread. And you happen to have this nice introduction section right here that explains the basic structure of the stuff that you're going to be seeing going into the future here. First and foremost, you got the envoy. You have the basic information right here, key ability scores, class skills, proficiencies. You have your chart here for any spell progression or your fortitude, reflex, will, your base attack bonus, class, etc., etc. You have basic level up mechanics right here. All your abilities you gain as you level up. Now, the problem with this is like the first section of the book where you have just this white section here, and there's only little bits of color here and there to break it up. So that is not the greatest thing. However, it's like if this is like 500 plus page book, if they stuck an extra piece of artwork here and there, it probably would eventually balloon the book out to 600 pages. And once you get past like the 500-ish range, and you're getting into that dangerous territory of having a hard time in reading through the book and finding stuff very quickly and efficiently. This section right here is a nice little section with a bunch of examples for the envoy. And then you have the mechanic. You get a base HP for the mechanic right off the bat. So you take your race/species HP and add it to the points, and then you have a little bonus here for the class. And then yet again the same thing. You have your basic stuff right here. You got your progression table right here, and you have all your level up stuff. And so forth. And then you have rules on how to make drones and your other fun stuff. You got drone table and drone features, basic modifications for your drone, and so forth. So in the case of mechanic, you happen to have a pet drone. And then you have your subclasses with your drone in 2 of them. Then you have mystic. You have level progression from 1st level to 6th level. So it's 1 to 6. And so forth. And I page through here quickly. You got operative, which is basically, as I said, the rogue. Yeah, looks roguey. You have the Solarian. You have your solar weapon, solar armor, and so forth. Table chart right here. Page through some more. You got your soldier. You got your technomancer, which is 1st to 6th level on your spells. You got your bonus table for your spells right here, as well as your spells known table. And then you have a section on archetypes. And so forth. You have the section on skills. Yet again, a really nice action scene running away from what looks to be an explosion. I would say that is a poor choice of color for that. It's either rock or an explosion. It looks like it's an explosion. However, it is really hard to tell because they had a poor choice of color. Most of the time, the artwork is really well done, except for when they kind of like made a poor choice based with color in that one. This is the skill section. It goes through all the examples of the skills, what skills can be learned by what class, and so forth. Yet again, you have some nice artwork here. You got basic information on training of skills, drugs, poisons, etc., etc. Familiarity, how to ride a creature. You have a section on feats. Generally, feats are basically just this gigantic box of feats that you gain access to based on your prerequisites, and that's pretty much it. Starfinder doesn't really put it into feat buckets like Pathfinder 2nd Edition does, where you have skill feats, class, ancestry, and so forth. It's just all piled into a big pile, and then there's a list of prerequisites tied to each one. It's a bit like 3.5 or Pathfinder 1st Edition in that regard, and that is something definitely that's been improved going from Starfinder 1st Edition to Pathfinder 2nd Edition. That they just don't toss all the feats into a gigantic bucket, and then you have to dig through them and find the ones you want. They actually divide them up into different groups and stick them into different lists. That way when you get to a skill feat, you got a skill feat. In this one, it's just like, here's a pile of feats. Dig through the book to find the feat you want. Which is fun for some people. You know, just digging through the book and just discovering a feat and like, oh, that's cool, and I just happen to meet the requirements of that in the next level. That's awesome. I might actually take that. However, in this case, it's not always the best thing, and I do much prefer Pathfinder 2nd Edition's bucketed system where you have all your feats in buckets. Because you can still have surprises, you can discover new feats when you page through Path Builder or two looking for feats, or the book. But in this case, it's really digging through the bucket. So, yet again, this is another situation of you have like just large sections of text, and you kind of like penetrating attack, combat. You know how to angle your attacks so that you penetrate your opponent's defenses. Prerequisites, base attack bonus of plus 12. Benefit, you'll reduce your target's energy resistance and damage reduction by 5 against your weapon attacks. And that's it. And that is an example of the feats for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. It's just usually there's a prerequisite, there's the name, the type, or what it relates to, like combat, or is just a generalized one. And then there is flavor text, prerequisite, benefit. And it's just a singular benefit. So it's little bitty feats, as opposed to Pathfinder 2nd Edition or Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, where the feats can have multiple added features in it. This is a section on equipment, and by the way, this is also the introduction to Space Goblins, which are the slightly taller, more chaotic version of all the lovely goblins we have ever loved. This is also the introduction to the concept of bulk. This is the first system in Paizo went with that they actually started using a bulk system instead of just weight, like pounds. So there you go. So if you just really dig through Starfinder 1st Edition, you will see numerous instances where Paizo experimented or developed a new concept in this book that they carried on to Pathfinder 2nd Edition and improved upon, or simplified and improved upon. So, yeah. By the way, in Pathfinder 1st Edition, there is energy and kinetic armor classes. So when your game master fires a projectile weapon at you, he's going to ask you what's your EAC or KAC, or give you a specific saving throw to go with. So you have 5 things. You have some basic melee weapons here. like clubs and dueling sword, ripper, and peacemaker, and so forth. Battle glove, gravity. That sounds fun. Two-handed weapons and advanced melee weapons, and so forth. So you have a nice selection of melee weapons. And then right about here, table 7-3, you got small arms, various little small pistols and laser guns and so forth. You have a nice, I really do like this, that they happen to have like art for almost like every single gun in the game. So it's really easy for your players, if you have an artistic player, to just sit down and then they just sketch out whatever gun they want. But they don't do that with all the melee weapons. Because quite frankly, if you can see, this is all weaponry right here. Melee, ranged, big guns, sniper rifles, grenades, various types of ammunition. If they did that with every single one of them, that's going to be adding an extra, like, another 6 pages. And this is already a 530 plus page book. So Solarian weapon crystals continued. Then you have various characteristics on your weapons here. Disarmed, entangle, explode, injection, line, non-lethal, operative, penetrating, powered, archaic, analog, automatic, blast, quick reload, and so forth. So if you wanted to go through all your characteristics or traits of your guns, boom, right after the gun section, you got it. Then you have critical hit effects right here, like such as arc, bleed, burn, corrode, deafen, injection, knockdown, severe wound, staggered, stunned, wounded, and so forth. Then you have various weapon descriptions like cryo weapons, flamethrower, flame type weapons, and so forth. Plasma weapon listings. Then you have a photo of some melee weapons. And continue on right from there. Some more weapon right here. Some more weapon fusion descriptions. You got armor section right here. You have a nice range of armors right here with different EAC and KAC bonuses. And so forth. You have light armor and heavy armor. There is no such thing as medium armor, but you have a large selection of heavy and light armor. You have special armor descriptors over here that are tied into different corporations and other stuff. Some artwork of various types of armor. You got a little bit of information on powered armor and so forth. Armor upgrades. You can upgrade your armor. You can add on stuff like booster packs or extra ammunition containers or force field generators and stuff like that. You got augmentation section right here, so you can replace your arm, your eye, your leg, and so forth. Hideaway limb. So you can have an extra arm, a mechanical arm that pops out. Technological items like grappling guns, signal jammers, X-ray devices, spy drones, and so forth. You got magic items in here as well, because remember, this is also a Game Master book. You have a nice selection of magic items. However, it is much shorter, as this is a science fantasy setting, and magic is not as heavily focused on as it was in Pathfinder's first edition or second edition. You have a vehicle section like hover bikes, Jeep type vehicles, hover boats, and so forth. Other purchase items like hygiene kits and other stuff, sedatives, gems, fine art, and so forth. Then you have the section on tactical rules. Nice action-oriented image right there. Oops. So you have a pretty nice imagery here. And it goes through all the different little details on initiative, combat rounds, explains the AC and attack rule systems and damage. Stamina points and saving throws yet again. Ability checks. Different rounding rules. Movement and thrown weapons. If you throw a weapon and you miss, there's a random chance of you like missing or having shrapnel fly off when it explodes or stuff like that. Different little small details on casting a spell, combat maneuvers, and so forth. Movement rules, targeting and so forth. Attacks of opportunity, whether you are into it or not. Injury and death rules, right over here. Healing as well. Combat modifiers, like concealment and high ground and stuff like that. Size and space. Burrowing, climbing, and flying and swimming rules. Those in combat. How your senses play out in combat and so forth. Special abilities, such as blind sight, invisibility, energy resistance, incorporeal, and so forth. Bonuses and penalties. Defining effects, like cones and bursts and so forth. Compulsion, accretion, and all the other fun stuff. Conditions, a section on conditions. Nice little handy dandy chart right here. Vehicle tactical rules. When you're driving in a vehicle like a hover car or something, how the mechanics of turning or moving quickly from side to side as you're driving down the road. Various chase rules and mechanics right here. Here's your vehicle chase rules. And then you have your starship section, chapter 9. A nice big beautiful scene here, with all your basic information on your spaceship combat, how to build your ship, and so forth. There is a updated book that adds more stuff to the shipbuilding section in this book, as well as new rules for all your all your classes and so forth in ship combat, as well as new ships. So this is just like the basics right here. It covers most of the things, and it even gives you a wide variety of ships here. See? However, there's even more in the ship operations manual coming into the future. Starship combat section. How this works. Hex edges and so forth. Attacking, crew actions, and so forth. You even have a nice example right here of what ship combat is like as a player in a little replay right here. You got magic and spells. Basic rules on it. Short lists for all the classes. You got spells for Mystic. And then you have spells for Technomancer right here, which are the only two true spellcasting classes in the game. And then you have various spells right here. Just page through. You got some artwork here and there. And then you have chapter 11, which is Game Mastery, which basically walks you through all the various key components of playing through the game. By the way, there is no Game Mastery guide for Starfinder First Edition. All the Game Mastery stuff is in this book and the Alien Archives and a few other books spread out. But all the core stuff that you need to run Starfinder is right here, such as balancing games and planning out sessions and so forth, and types of campaigns and all that fun stuff right there. And then you got setting information, basically the far future of Golarion, timeline, and so forth. And also goes through each planet, You got starting even with the sun. You know, you got the map yet again right here. And you got the sun. People actually live on the sun or around the sun on floating cities. Not very many people. It's mostly machines and stuff like that. And then you got a Billion and so forth. And then Castrovel. And it's usually 2 pages for each one. There are books that go into deeper depth on this. So I just... Boop. And then you have various... life forms and beings around the Pact Worlds here. Of important note. And factions. And then you got the legacy section right here. Like, oh, you want to like convert from your Pathfinder First Edition to this, and like, oh, here you go. You got all the rules right here, from Pathfinder First to Starfinder First. You got dwarves, elves, gnomes, half elves, half orcs, halflings, and that's it. And then you have the glossary right back here. You got the Starfinder First Edition player sheet. This is actually a really simple all-white sheet. It's actually really good for printing. As you can see, there is not a whole lot of different colors other than the headers, the blue headers for everything, with the little black boxes here and there. But anyways, it's pretty good. You have basically 2 sheets for your character. A little section right here for spells known on the edge. And then on the back side of this sheet, you happen to have your starship sheet right here. So you fill out all your starship information here, and you're good to go. I say overall, oh yeah, there's a section right here that shows off a whole bunch of books. A lot of the early stuff, as well as the Pawn collections. And the first Alien Archives right here. I do say, if you're going to play Starfinder, this is basically a 4.75. It's actually really well put together overall. This was truly what a lot of people say is a passion project for the people that worked on Starfinder. They didn't have as much playtesting as Pathfinder 2nd Edition. However, they still did an exceedingly good job of putting this system together. This is a must-buy if you want to get into Starfinder and play. Otherwise, you can just wait until Starfinder 2nd Edition comes out, and then you can go with that route. But I still would go ahead and buy this, just so you have the 1st Edition, and maybe play a game or two if you, or a session, or a short campaign if you want. This pretty much covers everything you need, with the exception that you need to still get one of the Alien Archives books. Preferably the first one would be the best one overall. But these are basically the only 2 things you need. And that's it. So, it's basically a 4+ star. It's like 4.75. I love the book. There's like tiny things that they can improve in it. But overall, those are really tiny things, and yeah. I hope you have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful week, and a magnificent month, and see you next time. Ciao.